Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is what you've been waiting for all evening, maybe all week. It's the Medical Board Sunset Extension Bill. Without this bill, the board and its licensing and enforcement measures, as you know, will expire at the end of the year. If it's passed, the bill extends the board by 4 more years to January 1, 2028. Now, as to changes, the bill makes various changes to the board's operation, including adding 2 public members to the board, creating a complainant liaison unit, adjusting the evidentiary standard in some cases, and tightening the enforcement timelines to improve board efficiency and reduce expenses, among other changes outlined in the floor analysis. But the one part of the bill that is always the most difficult is setting the license fee and the license renewal fee for physicians. Certainly that has been the case this year, and then some. Now to the fee, but first, some context. The Medical Board is just one of the boards and bureaus under the Department of Consumer Affairs that licenses professionals and others engaged in business in the state of California. The operations of the California Department of Consumer Affairs are funded almost entirely, if not entirely, by license fees paid by the licensees. There's no general fund involved, and that's the way it's been for years. In this case, the medical board operations are funded by the license fees paid by those it regulates, the physicians. All other boards and bureaus are funded exactly the same way. Since the medical board is staffed by state employees covered by state MOUs, the board's operational costs increase every year. Theoretically, the medical board license fees should increase as well on an annual basis, just to keep up with inflation and the MOU increases. Unfortunately, due to pushback from those who represent the licensees, those license fees have not kept up. Prior to 2021, the last time the physician license fees were increased was in 2006, 17 years ago. At that time, the license fee was set at $783 for a 2-year renewal period, or $391 per year per physician. Although there have been attempts to increase the license fees over the years, the Physician Association, the CMA, pushed back, and there was no increase. Obviously, the difficulty, those of you who've worked balance sheets and been in business, the difficulty with not periodically adjusting the license fee is that the operating expenses continue to increase without an increase in revenue to pay them. The Medical Board recently indicated that from about 1996 to 2022, the annualized increase in operating expenses was about 3.9%, and the license fee revenue remained essentially flat. The result, a financial situation at the Medical Board that continued to deteriorate year over year. In 2021, the board and the Department of Finance determined that in order to return the board to financial solvency, the 2-year renewal fee needed to increase from $783 to $1,150, an increase of $183 per year. I was around, and at that time, the Physician Association pushed back and insisted that the only fee increase the physicians would accept was a $40 per year increase. Due to difficulties associated with moving the sunset bill through the legislature and through this Senate, I accepted the $40 per year increase, and we increased the 2-year fee from $783 to $863 with the commitment that the physicians and the Physicians Association would work with the Business and Professions Committees and the administration to review the numbers and come to some agreement on what was needed to avoid board insolvency in the interest of transparency and accountability. Now, since the license fee revenue continued to fall significantly short of that necessary to cover board expenses, the DCA was forced to take money from the special fund license fee accounts of other boards and bureaus, in this case, the Bureau of Automotive Repair and the Auto Mechanics, and loan money to the Medical Board in order to pay the bills. In this case, loans of $22 million with another $15 million loan this year for a total of $47 million. Despite the stakeholders' commitment to participate in an active review of the medical board's financial condition, frankly, I had no contact with anyone on the issue until the Sunset Bill was introduced this year. Radio silence, crickets from those who object to what we do. Now, to the meat of the bill. This bill sets the physician license fee at $1,289, a slight reduction from $1,350 to try to accommodate the physicians, for 2 years, or $644 per year per physician. Now, this fee structure will allow the medical board to perform its license and enforcement function, pay off the loans from the other DCA special funds over a 5 to 6 year period, and build a modest reserve fund balance covering about 3 months of expenses. Without this fee increase, the medical board's fund balance, its checking account, if you will, is projected to decline, hitting a negative $15 million by budget year 2024-25, and reaching a whopping negative of $149 million in budget year 2028-29. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is negative spending. When I presented this license fee to the Physicians Association, they again pushed back on the increase and first insisted that physicians would only agree to pay an additional $75 a year, which obviously was insufficient. Then at 6 p.m. last night, during the floor session, as we were all sitting here having a good time, I received a more detailed counterproposal for discussion purposes. Under the draft proposal that I received, the association proposed a license fee increase of $93.50 per year, not the $213 necessary to restore the board to financial solvency, conditioned on the requirement that the general fund bail out the physicians from the medical board's $47 million loan debt, relieving the licensees of the obligation to fully fund their medical board. Now, even if this weren't a sea change in the way we run the Department of Consumer Affairs, not that I necessarily agree with it, but it's what we're stuck with, it's a very difficult demand under the current budget conditions. Obviously, as long as I'm on the committee, I will continue to work with the Physicians Association and other stakeholders to try to achieve some agreement here if and when the Sunset Bill moves forward, assuming that that's possible. But any agreement with me must ensure that the medical board is fully funded by the licensees it supports. With that, I will say that I don't really think that it should be solely my job to persuade this legislature to properly fund this part of state government. But here we are, and I guess I drew the short straw. But in moving this Sunset Bill through the legislature, I also want to say that my committee staff members have done their best working under very difficult circumstances with occasionally difficult parties to try to keep this part of government running. Obviously, given the objections, some of the physician groups don't agree. So at this point, I was going to suggest that you vote your conscience, but I think I'll simply ask for your aye vote to try to move this bill out of the Senate and to the Assembly to see what happens with it. I stand available to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Roth.